Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Nikita and I'm the product manager at Tax 990. Today we're going to talk about the filing requirements for the 990PF form. If you have questions during the presentation, please add them to the chat and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. We do want to mention we're not tax advisors and we will not be providing specific tax advice. We will purely be discussing IRS e-filing requirements and the process of e-filing with Tax 990. For specific tax questions, please contact a tax advisor or the IRS. This presentation will be recorded and available at tax990.com. During today's webinar, we'll be discussing Form 990PF filing requirements, qualifications of filing a 990PF. We'll look at the difference between operating versus non-operating private foundations. We're going to watch a brief video on the process of completing the 990PF balance sheet. And then we'll take a look at a couple of specific Tax 990 features, filing with Tax 990, and our upcoming webinars. Organizations that obtained 501c3 tax-exempt status and are classified as private foundations must file Form 990PF, which is the return of private foundation. They need to file annually to report their foundation's revenue, expenses, assets, liabilities, compensation details, activities, among other important details. Failure to file for 3 consecutive years may result in penalties or revocation of exempt status by the IRS. Private foundations that generate $1,000 or more from unrelated business income may also be required to file Form 990T. Schedule B is often required on the 990PF form to allow the private foundation to provide information on contributors. Next week, we'll be doing a webinar on Schedule B specifically, so if you need more information on that, you can join our webinar next week. The 990PF return is also used by 4947A1 trusts, treated as private foundations. If an organization is recognized as a private foundation as indicated on its determination letter, the organization has only one form option. The 990PF is required regardless of the organization's financial status. There are several other 990 series forms available, but those are specific for public charities and related to the financial status. If the organization is clearly indicated as a private foundation, there are no other form options on an annual basis, and the private foundation is required to file the 990PF regardless of their financial status. That's really important to remember because if you're a private foundation and you file the wrong form, it will be rejected by the IRS. Private foundations are organizations that are formed in order to further their exempt purpose and receive the majority of their support from a single major source, such as an individual, family, or group. Generally, private foundations primarily make donations to other charitable organizations and individuals rather than directly participating in charitable activities. As mentioned, your IRS determination letter will clearly indicate whether your organization is considered a private foundation, as well as whether your organization is an operating or non-operating private foundation. If the determination letter does not indicate that your organization is considered a non-operating private foundation, then it's likely considered an operating private foundation. We'll talk more about the difference between operating and non-operating in a few minutes, but if you're just completely unsure of which option to choose, we would suggest contacting the IRS for confirmation. If you can't clearly review that information on your determination letter, go ahead and call the IRS for confirmation prior to filing. The IRS has established certain requirements and restrictions on private foundations. Self-dealing between private foundations and their substantial contributors and other disqualified persons is strictly prohibited. A private foundation must distribute the income annually for charitable purposes, and the expenses must further the exempt purpose. Holdings in private businesses are limited, and the investment must not jeopardize the conduct of exempt purpose. To file Form 990-PF, you'll need basic information like the organization's name and EIN, the operating tax year, and the principal officer information, including name and address. Most of that information can be found on the IRS determination letter. As you work through the return, you'll be asked to complete parts pertaining to revenue and expenses, net assets and liabilities, capital gains and losses for tax on investment income, charitable activities, program-related investments, and information about officers, directors, and trustees. The major difference between public charities and private foundations is their source of funding. Public charities receive contributions primarily from the public, whereas private foundations receive the majority of their contributions from any single private source. Organizations that need to obtain 501c3 private foundation status should file Form 1023, which is the application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. Any organizations that obtain 501c3 tax-exempt status are automatically classified as private foundations unless they meet any of the criteria of public charities or they voluntarily apply for public charity status on the 1023 form. A public charity chooses the annual form to file based on its financial status throughout the tax year, and as mentioned, a private foundation must file the 990-PF form regardless of the financial status throughout the tax year. As I said earlier, if you are a public charity and you file a 990-PF, the return will be rejected, and vice versa, if you are a private foundation and you file a form other than the 990-PF, your return will be rejected. As I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the difference between operating versus non-operating private foundations, because choosing the inaccurate operating foundation could significantly impact the acceptance or rejection of your return. So private operating foundations are organizations that allocate the majority of their resources to carry out exempt activities. Private operating foundations qualify as exempt operating foundations if they meet the following conditions. They've received public support for at least 10 tax years or was a private operating foundation on January 1st, 1983, or consist of fewer than 25% of disqualified individuals in its governing body at all times during the tax year, and are broadly representative of the general public. A private non-operating foundation is a foundation that grants money and distributes funds to other charitable organizations rather than working on their own. These foundations contribute money for charitable purposes and make up most of the private foundation community. They're also referred to as grant-making foundations by the IRS, since these foundations are neither exempt operating foundations nor private operating foundations. They're eligible to conduct their charitable activities and award scholarships and make grants to individuals and international organizations that aren't recognized as 501c3 charities. As I mentioned, if you're unsure whether your organization is an operating or non-operating private foundation, you can reference your determination letter or contact the IRS. One of the most common areas of the return that our support team gets calls about is the 990-PF balance sheet. The IRS has very specific calculation requirements when it comes to the balance sheet that make completing it sometimes difficult to understand. Today we're going to take a look at the step-by-step process of completing the balance sheet for 990-PF form using our form-based filing method. We're going to begin by adding our revenue and expenses information in Part 1 of the 990 Easy Form. The information you put between lines 1 and lines 8 will auto-calculate as total revenue on line 9. For expenses, the information you put between line 10 and line 16 will auto-calculate as total expenses on line 17. So you can see here our total revenue was $156,000 and our total expenses was $148,000. Our excess of revenue over expenses is auto-calculated by subtracting line 17 from line 9, giving us an excess of $8,000. We're going to add our value of net assets or fund balances at the beginning of the year. You would find this information on your prior year return end of year information, which will generate our net assets or fund balances at the end of the year by combining lines 18 through 20 and giving us a total of $19,000. We're then going to move on to page 2 to complete the balance sheet information on page 2. So we'll input our beginning of year assets and liabilities to generate our net assets or fund balances. Now you can see once we put our asset information in, it's going to generate our total assets and calculate our net assets here. We do need to add our liabilities, and we can see the error we have here is stating that line 27 of column A, which would be this $59,000 value here, must agree with part 1, line 19. So if we go back to part 1 and scroll down to line 19, we'll see that our net assets at the beginning of the year was $11,000. So we have to input liabilities to equal out that value. We can use the green plus sign here to add liability information for both beginning of year and end of year. And that'll balance our error and make all of our numbers equal. Now, if we had not provided this end of year liability information, we would have an additional error indicating that line 27 column B of $63,000 must agree with part 1 line 21. If we go back to part 1 line 21, we'll see our value was $19,000, so we have to put input liabilities to equal that value. And again, you can see that cleared the error on both the balance sheet and the revenue and expenses section of the form. Since the IRS has mandated e-filing, your organization must use an e-file provider to complete and transmit your return. The IRS mandates that all 990 forms be filed electronically. Choosing an IRS authorized provider is crucial. However, you should also keep in mind that the features and tools they offer are also important to making the right choice for your organization. Just like choosing a technology-driven accounting software, choosing an e-file provider that meets your needs will streamline your reporting. Tax 990 is an IRS authorized e-file provider with over a decade of experience in e-filing tax forms. Collectively, Tax 990 and its sister products offer the option to e-file over 70 different tax forms, including business tax forms such as 1099s, W-2s, 941s, BOIR, and the W-9. Forms ACA, the ACA forms for the Affordable Care Act, such as the 1094 and 1095s, can be filed with ACA-wise. An Express Extension offers extension forms for business, personal, and other tax forms. For more information on our other solutions, please reach out to our team. Filing a return with Tax 990 can be done in just a few simple steps. Once you've created your account and added your organization, you'll choose the form you need to file. Using one of our 2 available filing format options, you will add all the necessary information to the return. Once you complete the return, Tax 990 will confirm the form and information provided has met all of the IRS form instructions using our internal audit. When you've cleared your audit errors, you'll have the option to share the return as necessary, And the final step is transmitting it to the IRS. Today we're going to look at a couple of spotlight features for a webinar that details all of the Tax 990 features. Please visit tax990.com/webinars to view one of our most recent webinars that takes a deeper look at each of the Tax 990 specific features offered. So today we'll look at these three. So we offer schedules, PDF options, and the internal audit. So based on the information you provide on your return, the necessary schedules are going to auto-generate. Schedules on a 990 series form are just additional documents that the IRS requires based on the information provided on the 990 series form. The 990 PF works with the Schedule B form. Only the Schedule B is available for the 990 PF, and it will auto-generate on the form itself with Tax 990 when you indicate that you have contributions of $5,000 or more on the 990 PF form itself. Additionally, only the necessary parts of the schedule will generate. So when Schedule B generates on your 990 PF, page 1 and 2 will automatically enable. And once you complete page 1 and 2, based off those responses, the necessary additional pages of Schedule B will generate if they're required, based on your Schedule B response on page 2. The PDF of your form is available during the entire process, so you can download a PDF copy of your form while you're working through it. It will have a watermark on it, just indicating that it is a draft copy until you transmit. Once you transmit, you'll have a professional copy available in your account that you can download and print at any time. As I had mentioned, we offer the internal audit, which is just confirmation that the information you've provided meets IRS form instructions. So Tax 990 won't allow you to proceed with your filing if you've not met the form instructions, meaning all of the calculations meet the IRS form instructions and requirements, all of the necessary parts have been completed, nothing that the IRS requires has been left blank, so on and so forth. So as you work through the form, it will generate these audit errors for you to resolve prior to transmitting. If you have questions along the way, we do offer customer support that is dedicated and personalized. We focus on your account and the questions you specifically have. You won't need to be on hold for several hours or be put on a callback list, so when you need assistance with your return, you can give us a call or reach out via chat or email. We are here to help you along the way. Please keep in mind we cannot provide specific tax advice, so if you have questions on specific tax reporting information, you would have to contact a tax advisor or the IRS. However, if you need assistance in understanding a specific line or navigation or a process with Tax 990, please give us a call. Tax 990 has put a lot of work into providing you with the best resources. You can review our knowledge base to get quick answers to common questions related to the filing process, form information, or filing requirements. You can also check out our YouTube and blog channels for helpful step-by-step guides and instructions. Leading up to the May 15th deadline, we will continue to host our webinar bootcamp every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to focus on specific topics related to 990 series filing. You can visit tax990.com/webinars to register for any upcoming webinar that relates to your filing requirements or to learn more about filing with Tax 990. If you're unable to attend any of the webinars, we will post them all on our website after they air live. They'll be short 20-minute topic-focused trainings similar to this one, and next week, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at Schedule B. Okay, so we will finish up today with a quick Q&A. If we do not get to your question today, please reach out to our support team at support@tax990.com. We'll also send a follow-up email if we were unable to review your question live. So I'll give you just a minute to post your questions in the chat, and we will take just a couple minutes here. We are running short on time, but we'll take just a couple minutes to answer a few questions live. Okay, so we've got, let's see, Logan is wondering, once you start the form, does it have to be finished, or can you stop and come back to it later? So with Tax 990, we do save all of your information as you work through the form. So you can get it started, answer part of it, and when you come back to it later, you'll pick up right where you left off. So it does save as you go. Let's see. Jackie is wondering how to pay the IRS if the 990 PF indicates fees are due. So with Tax 990, you can indicate how you intend to pay the IRS, whether that be electronic funds withdrawal or EFTPS. But you're just indicating how you intend to pay. It's not actually processing your payment. So once you indicate on your process how you intend to pay, you would have to follow up with logging into your EFTPS account and processing that payment, or going through irs.gov to process the payment. Tax 990 does not directly process fees due to the IRS. Okay. Lindsay is wondering if they can amend the 990 PF return. Lindsay, if you filed the original 990 PF return with Tax 990, yes, you can file an amendment. You would just click amend this return in your account and walk through the steps to make the necessary changes on what you already transmitted. If you did not file the original return with Tax 990, you can still file an amendment, but you would need to use our form-based filing format and click the amended option on page 1 on the left-hand side, and then you can work through the form and transmit it from there as an amendment. Okay, Jim is wondering about the 6-month extension option. So the 8868 form, 8868, is an application for an automatic 6-month extension of time to file. You do not need a reason for filing the extension form. As long as you file it on or before your original deadline. If you miss your deadline and you haven't filed the extension or the 990 form, the option for extension no longer applies and you just have to file the 990 form. For example, if you have a January through December tax year, your deadline to file is May 15th. So you have until May 15th to either file an extension or the 990 series return. If you file the extension on or before May 15th, then your new deadline would be November 15th, which would be 6 months after May. If you have additional questions on that, you can reach out to our team and we'd be happy to provide further guidance. Okay, so we are going to finish up today just because we are running a little over on our time frame. But like I mentioned, if you have additional questions, please reach out to us. I'll go back to that slide with our contact information. Give us a call or email. We'd be happy to provide additional guidance for you or help you take a look at your account and answer your specific questions. Otherwise, thank you for joining us today. Please check out our webinar next week, sorry about that, to look at Schedule B and the process of completing that, the purpose of Schedule B, and how it relates to your form. Have a great day. Thanks.